A few years ago, my life took a turn that I never expected. It all began when I decided to live alone in our big house. My parents and I had some disagreements, and I wanted to prove to them that I could handle myself. So I moved into our home, determined to show them that I could manage just fine on my own. I was a young girl, full of hope and excitement for my newfound independence. Our house was old, with creaky floors and drafty hallways, but I loved it nonetheless. It was my sanctuary, my haven, away from the troubles of the world. Living alone wasn't easy at first. There were nights when I felt scared and vulnerable, the silence of the house echoing around me like a haunting melody. But I pushed through, determined to prove myself to my parents and myself. One fateful night, as I lay in bed reading a book, I heard a noise coming from the basement. At first, I dismissed it as the house settling, or maybe even a stray animal finding its way inside. But as the minutes passed, the noise grew louder and more distinct, sending shivers down my spine. Curiosity got the better of me, and I summoned up the courage to investigate. I grabbed a flashlight from the bedside table and made my way down the creaky stairs, the darkness of the basement enveloping me like a thick fog. As I descended into the depths of the basement, my heart pounded in my chest, each step echoing loudly in the silence. I swept the flashlight around, illuminating the dusty corners and cobweb-covered shelves, but I saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just as I was about to turn back, I heard a faint whimper coming from behind a stack of boxes. My pulse quickened, and I cautiously approached, the beam of light trembling in my trembling hand. And then I saw him, a man huddled in the corner, his eyes wide with fear as he stared back at me. I froze, my mind racing with fear and confusion. Who was he? How did he get into my house? And why was he hiding in my basement? Before I could gather my wits, the man spoke, his voice trembling with fear and desperation. He told me that he had been homeless, seeking shelter from the cold when he stumbled upon my house. He begged me not to call the police, promising to leave and never return if I spared him. I hesitated, torn between fear and compassion. Part of me wanted to call the police and have him arrested for trespassing, but another part couldn't bear to see him suffer. In the end, my compassion won out, and I helped him out of the basement and into the night, promising to keep his secret. But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the back of my mind. What if he came back? What if he was dangerous? I tried to push those thoughts aside, telling myself that I had done the right thing by showing him kindness. But then, one night, as I lay in bed listening to the sound of the wind howling outside, I heard it again. The noise from the basement was louder this time, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing through the house. My heart raced as I grabbed the flashlight and crept downstairs, my hands trembling with fear. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw him again, the man from the basement, standing in the middle of the room with a wild look in his eyes. Before I could react, he lunged towards me, his hands outstretched as if to grab me. I screamed and stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest as I frantically searched for something, anything, to defend myself with. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A baseball bat leaning against the wall nearby. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged for it, gripping it tightly in my hands as I turned to face the man. But he was gone, vanished into thin air as if he had never been there at all. I stood there, shaking with fear and confusion, unsure of what had just happened. I wanted to call the police, to tell them everything that had happened, but a part of me feared they wouldn't believe me. They would think I was crazy, that I had imagined the whole thing. So I kept silent, telling myself that it was just a figment of my imagination, a trick of the mind brought on by fear and exhaustion. But deep down, I knew the truth. There was someone in my house, someone who didn't belong, and they were watching me, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Weeks passed, and the feeling of unease never left me. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside, sent a shiver down my spine. I tried to convince myself that I was being paranoid, and that there was nothing to be afraid of, but the fear never truly left me. And then one day, as I was cleaning out the basement, I found it. A makeshift bed hidden behind a stack of boxes, along with empty food wrappers and discarded clothing. Someone had been living down here, right under my nose, without me even realizing it. I felt sick to my stomach as the realization sank in. How long had they been here? What did they want from me? And most importantly, where were they now? I wanted to run, to flee from the house and never look back. But a part of me knew that wouldn't solve anything. I needed to confront whoever was behind this, to put an end to the terror that had consumed my life for far too long. With a newfound determination, I called the police and told them everything. About the man in the basement, about the noises in the night, about the fear that had gripped me for weeks on end. They arrived soon after, their faces grim as they listened to my story. They searched the house from top to bottom, but found no sign of the man who had been living in my basement. But just as I was beginning to lose hope, they made a breakthrough. A neighbor had reported seeing a suspicious-looking man lurking around the area, and when they questioned him, he confessed to everything. He had been living in my basement for weeks, watching me from the shadows as I went about my daily life. He claimed he meant no harm, that he was just desperate for shelter and food, but I knew better. As they led him away in handcuffs, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The nightmare was finally over, and I could finally reclaim my life without fear or paranoia. It was a stormy night, the kind where the wind howls like a wounded animal and rain pelts against the windows like icy daggers. Lightning slashes across the sky, casting eerie shadows that dance along the walls. And amid this tempest, I find myself alone with my little brother Tim. Our family had left earlier for a week-long trip, leaving Tim and me to fend for ourselves. I wasn't too thrilled about being responsible for my 8-year-old brother, especially on a night like this. But we had plenty of food, emergency numbers, and assurances from our parents that everything would be fine. As darkness settled over the house, the storm intensified, rattling the windows and shaking the very foundation of our home. Tim and I huddled on the couch, trying to distract ourselves with a movie. But the storm's fury made it hard to focus, and an uneasy feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. Midnight approached, and Tim had already drifted off to sleep, snuggled up against me for warmth. But I couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. Lightning illuminated the room in brief, stark flashes, casting long, sinister shadows that seemed to reach out for us. And then, amidst the chaos of the storm, I saw him, a tall figure standing outside our window. My heart skipped a beat, and I held my breath, hoping it was just a trick of the lightning. But the figure remained, tall and imposing, his silhouette stark against the darkness. He seemed to be staring right at me, his gaze piercing through the thin veil of rain-soaked glass. I wanted to wake Tim, to tell him what I saw, but fear rooted me to the spot. I watched in horror as the figure moved closer to the window, his movements slow and deliberate. Lightning flashed again, and for a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of his face. Pale and twisted, with a cruel smile. A cold shiver ran down my spine as the figure tapped on the glass, the sound echoing through the room like a death knell. Tim stirred beside me, but I dared not move. I prayed for morning to come, to chase away the darkness and the terror that came with it. The figure tapped again, more insistently this time. And then, with a sudden jolt, he tried to open the window. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to my feet, my mind racing with thoughts of escape. But before I could do anything, the window creaked open, and the figure slipped inside. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest as the figure straightened up to his full height. He towered over me, his features obscured by the darkness that cloaked him. I could smell the stench of decay emanating from him, a sickly sweet odor that made my stomach churn. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. The figure didn't respond. Instead, he took a step closer, his movements slow and deliberate. I could feel his gaze boring into me, cold and unyielding. I wanted to run, to scream for help, but fear held me in its grip. I was paralyzed, unable to move as the figure closed in on me, his presence suffocating. And then, just as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. I blinked, my mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Had it all been a dream? A trick of the storm? But then I saw the open window, and I knew it was real. The figure had been here, in our house, mere inches away from me. I stumbled backward, my legs threatening to give out beneath me. I had to get out of here to find somewhere safe until morning came. With trembling hands, I grabbed Tim and rushed out of the house, not daring to look back. As we stumbled into the night, the storm raged on around us, its fury matching the terror that still pulsed through my veins. The figure was out there somewhere, waiting in the darkness. And no matter how far we ran, I knew he would always be one step behind us, his presence haunting our every move. But as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, chasing away the darkness and the terrors that came with it, I knew one thing for certain. I would never forget the night the tall man came to visit and the fear that he brought with him. My name is Alex. I'm 22 years old, living alone in a cozy little house on the edge of town. It's a quiet place, especially at night when the only sounds you hear are the rustling of leaves in the wind and the occasional hoot of an owl. Usually I enjoy the solitude, but tonight feels different. It's one of those dark, moonless nights where the darkness seems to swallow everything whole. I find myself sitting in my living room, surrounded by shadows, with only the dim glow of the lamp for company. The clock ticks loudly, marking the passing minutes, and I can't shake this unease gnawing at me all evening. My plan was simple: a night in, me, and a few movies to keep me company. But as the hours go on, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Every creak of the old house makes me jump, and I find myself glancing nervously over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone, or something, lurking in the darkness. I try to shake off the feeling, chalking it up to an overactive imagination. But then I hear it, a soft scratching sound coming from somewhere in the house. My heart skips a beat as I strain to listen, but it's gone as quickly as it came, leaving me wondering if I imagined it. I try to focus on the movie playing on the TV, but my mind keeps wandering back to that sound. Maybe it's just a mouse, I tell myself, trying to rationalize away the fear that's starting to creep in. But deep down, I know it's more than that. There's something not right about tonight. With a shaky hand, I reach for the remote, intending to turn off the TV and go to bed. But before I can, I hear it again, the scratching louder this time, more insistent. It's coming from upstairs, I realize, from the direction of my bedroom. I freeze, my breath catching in my throat as a cold sweat breaks out across my skin. Who or what is up there? I want to believe it's just my imagination running wild, but the fear coursing through me tells me otherwise. Summoning every ounce of courage I have, I slowly make my way up the stairs, each step feeling like an eternity. The scratching grows louder with each passing moment, until it's all I can hear, echoing in my ears like a sinister symphony. I reach the top of the stairs and pause, listening intently. The sound seems to be coming from behind the closed door of my bedroom. My hand trembles as I reach for the doorknob, my heart pounding in my chest. With a deep breath, I push the door open, half expecting to come face to face with some unspeakable horror. But the room is empty, bathed in darkness, save for the faint glow of the moon filtering in through the window. Relief washes over me as I step into the room, trying to convince myself that I was just being paranoid. But then I saw it, the source of the scratching, a long, jagged scratch running down the length of the wall, like something, or someone, had dragged their nails along it. My blood runs cold as I realize I'm not alone in this house. There's something here with me, something dark and malevolent, lurking in the shadows. And suddenly, the thought of spending another moment in this place fills me with a primal terror, unlike anything I've ever known. I turn to flee, to get as far away from this nightmare as I possibly can, but before I can take a single step, I hear it, the sound of laughter, low and menacing, echoing through the darkness. I freeze, my heart pounding in my chest as the laughter grows louder, surrounding me. And then from the depths of the shadows emerges a figure, a twisted, nightmarish creature with glowing eyes and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. I scream, the sound echoing through the empty house as the creature lunges for me, its claws outstretched, and then everything goes black. When I wake, it's morning, and the sun is shining weakly through the curtains. For a moment, I wondered if it was all just a dream, a trick of my imagination brought on by the darkness of the night. But then I see the scratch on the wall, a cruel reminder of the horrors that lurk in the shadows. And as I flee the house, vowing never to return, I can't shake the feeling that something is still watching me, waiting for the next night to strike again.